After finishing up the lecture part of chapter 1, we will go over so many exercises that we might not have the time to do while explaining the perspective principle in the previous lessons. I was planning to do just one video for exercises at the end of this chapter, but the more I did, the longer the video was. So I had to divide it into smaller parts so I don't end up with uploading 3 hours video. So in this video I will go over as many exercises as possible for all the lessons we talked about previously, starting from the first lesson up to the skewing tool in lesson 17. These exercises are something to do after you finish up the lessons and the exercises we demonstrated along with them. You can also expand on these exercises yourself and add more to it or combine 2 or 3 of them together. The idea here is to show the limitless way to study perspective through as many exercises as possible. At the end of these 5 or 6 videos, I will show a teaser exercise to what you can expect in the next chapter of perspective drawing. In the next chapter, we move on to more complex and advanced techniques for drawing in perspective, as well as starting to create things out of our imagination, and not just copy what we see in the reference photo. So stick around to the last exercise video to see the teaser of what to come next. With that said, let's go back to the first few lessons and do some exercises in drawing a box in the 1, 2, and 3 point perspective. The idea here is to enhance the way you draw in perspective as well as speed things up a little bit. If you have been following the series from the start, you should be able to do these in no time. Drawing boxes in 1 point perspective, as we said before, will start with a rectangle in any size, and then we connect it to the one vanishing point on the horizon line. Then we decide the depth of the box and draw a second rectangle for the back side of the box. It is that easy. You can replace the one vanishing point on any position you want on the horizon line and fill up the whole page with different boxes and other shapes with different sizes and dimensions as well. Once you decide on the position for the vanishing point, you can start filling up the sheet. Take your time and don't rush things out right away. The point of this exercise is to make sure we get things right from the start, and then pick up speed as we go. 1 point perspective is basically a 2 point perspective with the second point being outside of the canvas connected back to the object with horizontal lines. But you can't have the same horizontal lines with different vanishing points, because that would change the angle in between the point we see on the horizon and the point outside the canvas. But multiple perspective points type will be possible with any other perspective type that isn't a 1 point perspective, as we explained in the previous lesson. So here I'm just showing that you can pick any point on the horizon line and fill a whole sheet using that one point before switching to another point on a different sheet. You can of course draw boxes below the horizon line, at the horizon line, or above it. And as you do all this, you can keep going over every empty space to fill a whole sheet all around, even overlapping some of the boxes with more and more boxes. This way you will end up with surreal painting or drawing of lots and lots of boxes. You can also start with multiple rectangles all over the page. In 1 point perspective, you will have a vertical and horizontal line for the initial rectangle, and then we can move it toward the vanishing point. So with all these rectangle shapes, we can convert them into forms by simply connecting them to the vanishing point and then set the depth to close them up. The more you do this, the better your sheet will look. So try to do as many as you can for this first type of perspective. When you have drawn enough, you can move on to the second type of perspective, the 2 point perspective. As we talked before with the 2 point perspective, we start with a vertical line and connect it to each vanishing point to get the side faces, and then decide the width of our box from both sides and connect it back to the opposite vanishing point. At the intersection point, we will have the final edge of our box. Let's start filling up the page with as many boxes as possible and make sure we do it slowly and correctly as always. You can draw on the horizon line, under it, or above it as you like. And see how the position around the horizon line changes the shape of the box and what faces you see from it as it moves around. Also notice how forms get distorted as it moves closer to the vanishing point, and less distorted as it moves away from it, toward the center in between the two vanishing points. Again, we start with the lines all over the page and start connecting them around toward the vanishing point. Draw as many boxes as you want, using any different combination of points on the horizon line, either keeping it with 2-point or using multiple point perspective. In this type, it's possible to have multiple vanishing points. Just remember in this case to keep the spacing between the two vanishing points at 90 degrees, with a stationary point as we did with the perfect cube. We will talk more about this later in different exercises. For now, you can use 2 points and fill up your sheet with as many boxes as possible. Once you finish all the sketch lines, you can go over with line weight and line quality to make sure your drawing looks better presented with more clean lines. Moving on to the 3-point perspective, you can draw either looking up toward the third vanishing point upward or down toward the third point downward. Here I lower the horizon line and draw a third vanishing point upward, slightly toward the right. You can keep it in the center if you want less distortion, but do experiment with this position and see how it goes. With a 3-point perspective, we can only start with the anchor point for the box that we want to draw. Then we can connect it to the third vanishing point. From there, we can decide the length of the first edge and then connect it toward the vanishing points on the horizon line. Then we decide the width of the box and connect it back toward the opposite vanishing point, getting the back side of the box. We can draw other boxes all around and fill up the page like we did before. Be careful with this type of perspective. Try to stay away from drawing very close to the vanishing points. You can see here the closer I get to the vanishing point, the shape is almost unrecognizable due to distortion. So the further away from the vanishing points, the better. You can also do this by drawing a smaller canvas in the middle and keeping your 3-point perspective outside of it. This way you're guaranteed to have a minimal distortion inside your canvas. I know I'm doing a few here, but trust me, we have so many exercises to do, this video will be too long already, without filling the whole canvas. But you should try it yourself. The more you do these, the better you will get at drawing in perspective. You can do the same thing but with the third vanishing point underneath the horizon line, tilting our head down looking at our boxes. You can also draw things uniformly like this shape here, as one segmented box and only outlining some of it. Try different shapes and really enjoy the process. As before, you can also start with an anchor point all around your canvas and connect them to the vanishing points till you fill up the whole page. Again, be careful not to get too close to the vanishing points, or you will end up with lots of distortion. And here are the boxes from 1, 2, and 3 point perspective. I personally don't use the 4 point perspective that much, but in case you wanted to do more exercises, you can draw more boxes in 4 point perspective like we did in the lesson before. Here the vertical lines won't be straight, but they will curve in between the top and bottom vanishing points, giving it a fisheye lens effect. So start with a spherical grid with 4 vanishing points and choose your canvas in the center, and not too close to the vanishing points as we said for any type of perspective, so you don't have a heavy distortion on your objects. You can choose the initial lines for the first edges all around. These lines will follow the grid we drew before. You can guesstimate it by eye or draw lines from the third and fourth vanishing points in between the grid to get it exactly right. Then you connect the lines toward the other vanishing points to get the rest of the edges. Don't forget that there are no vertical or horizontal lines here, only curves between the third and fourth vanishing points and straight lines between the first and second vanishing points. Also, don't forget about the isometric view. I do use this especially when working on strategy game or mobile games. This is where the object will have parallel lines that goes toward the vanishing points, if the vanishing points are infinitely far away. So the lines will never converge as they do in normal perspective. So we don't see the horizon line or the vanishing points. We just draw the perspective lines at 30 degrees angle from both sides. You can draw it at 45 degrees, but that will make it more distorted. So the larger the angle, the more distorted it will be. The smaller the angle, the more flat it will be. The good thing about this perspective type is that you can move the box anywhere you want around the page, and it will always be correct no matter what. Since there are no conversions happening, you can move it wherever you want and it will always be correct. I can also duplicate this very fast without any calculations. I can simply copy it and it will be correct since the perspective angle is the same everywhere. That's why it's used a lot in top-down video games because it will make assets easier to draw for it. You can also stack boxes around in different sizes and make the whole page look like a warehouse if you want. This is a fun perspective to play with, so go crazy and draw as much shapes as you want to fill your page. Before moving on from boxes, we can talk a little bit about multiple point perspective. We can't have multiple one point vanishing points as we discussed before, because in one point perspective, we have one vanishing point that is outside of the canvas and always in the same position. So choosing two different points with the same stationary point will result in two different angles that are less or more than 90 degrees, as we discussed in the previous lesson. But in a two-point perspective, you can have a stationary point at the center of your canvas and then choose 2 points on the horizon line at 90 degrees from that point. Then you can move the 2 points together, left or right, to get more vanishing points. Also, for a multiple perspective point, if you choose 2 points that are so far away from each other for one box and 2 points that are too close for the other box, your perspective will look weird. It will be distorted in one box and flat in the other. So here, even when I change the points, I make sure the same distance between the vanishing points stay at the 90 degrees from the stationary point. Even if I have to go outside of the canvas and guesstimate that distance for the second point, I still keep the same angle. This way the boxes will all look like they are in the same scene, but rotating around from one box to the other. You can keep going here till you fill the whole scene like a warehouse filled with boxes. Once you finish all the sketch lines, you can go over with line weight and line quality to make sure your drawings looks better presented with more clean lines. Maybe we weren't as formal in the previous example, but we were drawing in a technical way. So here I will go full on freehand drawing, still keeping in mind the rules of perspective, but without drawing any perspective lines or following each box to the vanishing point. Just drawing a bunch of boxes laying around. Not even in a straight way, just like someone opened a hatch from above and threw down a pile of boxes and they just fell around. This is where things get more exciting and much more enjoyable. It's the end goal after all to all the rules and regulation of perspective, to actually start drawing fun scenes. So enjoy yourself and draw as much of these as possible in different forms, combinations, and pile shapes. Once you sketch all the boxes, go over it with the cleaner and better quality lines to finish it up. I can still make it look a bit better, but we still have a lot of exercises ahead. So let's move on to another example. For the grid star lesson, you can do as many examples as you want using 2-star grid with a canvas frame in between. This will speed up your work process a lot, because you don't have to connect each line toward the vanishing point. You only need to work around the frame you have underneath in between the 2-star grids. You can draw a whole block of buildings while maintaining the same perspective lines you already have. You can get as creative as you want with the interior shapes of the buildings, the windows, doors, or other accessories you want to add. You can also use any techniques we learned about dividing, stacking, and multiplying as you draw these buildings. You will see how the star grids really speed up your work as you draw. So try to draw as many examples as you want using different locations for the stars and the horizon line. You can even draw more complicated shapes like this train toy, starting with large forms all the way to small ones. Take your time and maintain the same perspective you see in the reference and the position of your canvas. Later, you can start moving the canvas around and draw the same set in different perspectives. If you saw that this is a bit too advanced, don't worry, we will cover changing the reference perspective in chapter 2. For now, try to draw it as it is. Next exercise, we go over the measurements and duplication techniques by duplicating the rectangle in one point perspective all the way back to the vanishing point. And we learn how to do that by finding the center of the rectangle, connecting it to the vanishing point, and connecting the start corner of the rectangle through the center to the far edge all the way to the top or bottom limit to find the edge of the second rectangle. Do this all the way to the vanishing point or closer to it. To replicate it as many times as you want. Once you do that, we can try the same thing with a box this time. We draw the first box and replicate its front face like we did with the 2D rectangle. Then we connect the rectangle to the vanishing point to draw the repeating boxes all the way to the vanishing point. We can also change the basic shape from a box to a pyramid. We didn't do this before, so let's see how that would work. Simple, we convert it to a box. Duplicate that box just like we did previously, and then find the center of the top face of the box and connect that center to each corner on the bottom. This way we will have a pyramid on each duplicated box. And with that, we get a duplicating pyramids all the way to the vanishing point. There are many ways to do this, by the way. You can duplicate the bottom face of the pyramid without drawing the box, and then finding the center of the bottom of each new bottom face and connect the first pyramid top to the vanishing point, and all the center lines of each pyramid getting the same result in a different way. The same thing can be done with a cylinder, duplicating the box, thus getting the duplicating cylinder as well. We can make things more complicated as we move on by duplicating, for example, a letter. It's an easy letter, but you can make it even harder as you go on, like duplicating the letter G. But here we have the letter T, which we can put the front of it in a rectangle and duplicate it like we did before. Then we connect the bottom of the bridge of the T to get it in all the duplicates. The T letter has 4 equal parts, or 4 units, 2 for the main body and 1 unit on each side. So we can divide each duplicate rectangle into 4 equal parts to get the same measurements of the first letter. Once we have the front face done, we can connect the back of it to the first letter and then to the vanishing point to get the same limit for all other letters. We connect each letter to the other vanishing point and get the depth of the letter as well. You can duplicate it as much as you want and find other ways to do it as well. There is always more answers to how to draw things in perspective, so try to find some on your own from all the lessons and techniques we did before. Now let's go over the basic shapes. Simply pick up different basic shapes and try to create a scene with it. So here I draw a cylinder and duplicate it toward the horizon line. We did this many times before, but now we can change the shape of the cylinder to anything we want. We can turn them into columns, or trees, or even figures. So I change the first one into a column and then connect it to the vanishing point to make sure that all other crowns look the same as they go back into perspective. Now you can tell your story. I can add a little crack in the middle, cut the whole columns in half in a very crooked way, and then turn it upside down toward the ground if I want, like an old ancient Roman. I can add more details like cracks or missing parts, or even divide it into small pieces. Just having fun here, creating a narrative within the drawing. I can also add different size columns on the other side and do the same things there. You don't have to stick with basic shapes. Find different column reference and then change your shape toward that reference. Don't worry if this is too advanced, because this is basically what the 2 upcoming chapters will be about. Drawing basic shapes in perspective is not meant to be the end goal. It's just the basic sketch that we will build our own imaginative world upon. I can go on with this and turn it into a complete runescape, but you get the point. Try to make a scene out of these exercises. This way they won't be as monotone and boring as just drawing simple boxes and cylinders. Try to have more fun with it. Moving on to the ellipses and cylinders lesson, we can start drawing different ellipses and cylinders in a way we didn't do before. For example, we can draw one part perspective box and segment it into different rectangles. And then draw an ellipse on each of these rectangles to see how the ellipse will look like as it moves horizontally from one side to the other. Of course, you can draw the ellipse the manual way by finding the 8 points of the edge of the ellipse by dividing the rectangles all around and then drawing the ellipse manually. Or you can use Photoshop ellipse tool. And here you can see how the ellipse looks like as it moves from right to left or left to right. Next, we can simply just draw as many cylinders as we did with the box before in 1, 2, or 3 point perspective. Fill the entire sheet with each type of perspective and as many cylinders as you can. Also change the position of the horizon line as well, like we did before. We can do the same thing we did with the horizontal box, but now vertically, to see how the ellipse will look like as it moves from the top to bottom or bottom to top. So we draw the box going all the way up and divide it into different segments and draw an ellipse on each one. And this is how the ellipses will look like as it moves from below the horizon line to above it. It also looks like a nice cylinder with form lines, so do as many as you can of that as well. Now remember how we did the rectangle duplication before? We can do the same thing, but after we get the rectangles, we can draw different ellipses to see how the ellipse looks like as it moves toward the horizon. So this way you will see how the ellipse moves in perspective in all axes, in X, Y, and Z axis, and how it will change as it moves around. You can also do this with cylinders, pyramids, boxes, and any other shape you want, both in 2D and 3D. Let's do that now. Here I'm going to fill a sheet with different basic shapes, pyramids, cylinders, cones, and so on. And it doesn't have to be all in one orientation. You can flip the pyramid upside down, for example. You can rotate it to a different vanishing point. Try to make each sheet different, so you don't get bored doing it. Next, I go over the control lines we talked about before. We can do a quick revision with different shapes. Control points include center points, directional axis, form lines, cross sections, and center lines, among others. After that, we move on to object modifications like shearing an object. You can see me here shearing an object in all axes. By using the measuring tool, we can move the top face in the X or Y or Z direction while keeping the base of the box stationary. Or we can do it the other way around. We can also do the same to the side faces, keeping one static and moving the other upward or any other direction. Alright, this video is getting a bit long. I thought I can add all exercises in one video, but it will be over an hour long. So let's stop the video here and continue with more exercises for chapter 1 in the next video. We might have to do 5 or 6 exercise videos in total. As always, if you like this lesson, feel free to leave a like. If you have any questions, leave them down below in the comment section, and I will do my best to answer them as soon as possible. To stay notified for future lessons, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next video.